So between you, who chooses room sizes and proportions? Because there are some pretty big rooms in these conversions.
I think returning to the discussion we had about putting the house back to its original proportions before we started, what we did was we stripped the house back to as it was originally conceived, and our first port of call really as a design driver was a light touch. So we wanted to not add in tens and tens of linear meterage of new walls, utilise existing openings. So a lot of the design aesthetic really came from going back to the start. And when we ended up with a room like this, of this sort of scale, we said, okay, well, can it stay this big? Can we have an open plan kitchen? Can we have the living room? So we tested the spaces because we were very keen on keeping the scale and proportion of the property, and just seeing how that worked with modern living, really.
I think works very well with modern living because, you know, contemporary living now is about open plan spaces, and, you know, a room like this you divide into your dining area, your kitchen area, your living area, but it's one big beautiful space, and I do think more and more people are wanting that these days. I don't know if you'd agree with me, Jonathan. But
Definitely, but what I also tend to find is you've got this tug of war with developers where they think chopping it up and carving it into as many bedrooms as possible and as many reception rooms as possible, and actually they lose their functionality.
I've always done the opposite.
we like space. You know, we've worked in a sector where space is used in a different manner, where space is the barometer for tightening things up. So we wanted to let this development breathe a little. I mean, it did bring its own design challenges because we're putting a kitchen in that is a backdrop to a living room. Yeah. So when you start getting into the detail of kitchens and reflections and colours, you are integrating that into people's soft furnishings and the surfaces on the floor. So lighting control, heating control, so all of those things with these big open plan spaces has had to just be thought through. But we tested lots of different solutions, and this was the right one.
So what you also find, and appreciate here, the windows are patched up at the minute, so you haven't got the natural light, but when you have these big open plan spaces, more natural light floods in. Yeah. You've got less of these oppressive wall that suppresses the natural daylight coming through. Yeah.
You've got dual and sometimes triple aspect and beautiful spaces, and we're just getting to the point where we're going to be finishing and dressing some of the spaces. So that's really what I'm looking forward to, seeing how it's going to look at the end.
And the age of a property, of course, is synonymous with the volume of windows in the property and also the size of them. If you go back to Tudor times, obviously they tend to be quite small frames and there's less natural light. Here, you've got so much window space and of course, beautiful views out as well.
As you say, such fantastic aspect. We've got lovely views out over the grounds and the countryside beyond. And once we put the spaces back, they were proportionally correct. The amount of window to wall, the volumes to the ceilings. So we didn't really take a lot of persuading not to divide them back up.
Because that's another important point. It's not just the square footage, it's the cubic space as well, because actually it's the volume of the ceilings. And here you've got this half-barreled ceiling, you've got the vaulted sections. It's just got such a nice feel to it. Yeah. Again, there are some developers, because it's more complicated to finish something like this, where they might lose elements of that, and it's such a shame. It's almost sacrilege.
We would have liked, I think, to have done less restoration, but we knew going back further in certain instances was the right thing to do because of certain elements of condition of the building. So we've done a lot more plasterwork to ceilings, etc., than we'd originally envisaged, purely because of what the building told us as we started to expose things and take partitions down. But it has always been put back something that was there and restore what's there, rather than strip it out and lose it forever.
But it even presents complications with things like cornicing, and you've had to get stuff specially made here, haven't
Absolutely.
You?
But to be fair, we've got a contractor that has subscribed to that strategy. And the guys who are working on site, particularly the guys who are doing the extension with the stonework, are, you know, waking up in the middle of the night thinking about it. You know, they have completely subscribed to what we're trying to do, which is really helpful.
living and breathing the project, which is just what you want.
Absolutely.